What's going on, everyone? It is the Derf, and today I'm going to introduce to you an extremely powerful Prismatic Warlock Void-centric build. If you have ever wanted to decimate the battlefield and just be a single person absolute wrecking ball, this is the build for you. It synergizes with light and dark. It has excellent ability regen, super regen, and ammo economy regen. And if you do happen to find anything that in this video that resonates with you, please like and subscribe. Or if you know someone that's looking for an excellent Void Warlock build, please share it with them. All your support is greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get on into it. So obviously we're running the Prismatic Warlock class. I've got the Nova Bomb Cataclysm super equipped. Now I want you to note that base cooldown, as in my other videos, it's 8 minutes and 20 seconds. With this build, you absolutely will never wait such an absurd amount of time to get your super back. You're going to be popping this multiple times during any Vanguard strike, Gambit strike, raid, lost sector, doesn't matter. Even overthrow activities. This is going to be an excellent damage phase super. Probably the best in the game. If not, definitely in the top 2. Needle Storm has always kind of flirted at the top, as well as, you know, the new Solar. But Nova Bomb Cataclysm, if you've ever used it, or maybe if you've never used it, you already know it is a powerful option. As far as abilities go, these two don't really matter. I've got the Healing Rift and the Burst Glide. As far as my melee, I've got Arcane Needle. I just think it's the most powerful. I understand it's not synergistic with Void itself. So there's a couple of missed opportunities, along with the Threadling Grenade that I'll talk a little bit about as I continue on with this build here. But I think these two options are going to be your most powerful for instant tick damage, as well as some splash damage and the ability to generate a tangle, which you can use to clear out more of the battlefield as you go. For aspects, I've got Weaver's Call and the Hellion. I understand both of these have absolutely nothing to do with Void, but believe me, they're going to complement this very well. Activate your class ability, generate some Threadlings. Keep in mind, any of the Threadlings that don't find an enemy come back to you and circle you and jump out when you start damaging your next enemy. This is going to be useful anytime you're running solo content. And then the Hellion, I like this the best because it just lobs a solar mortar, and it also deals light damage as well. I think it's the best complement to just about every class you could have, although I understand for certain builds it's going to be different. But it also gives you 3 fragment slots. I had a question about that on one of my other videos. How am I getting 6 fragment slots? Weaver's Call has 3, and the Hellion also has 3, which means more flexibility in your build. As far as stat distribution, it's a pretty solid stat distribution in my opinion. I like to focus on resilience, grenade, and intellect. So resilience, discipline, and intellect. Resilience at a T9, discipline at a 10, intellect at a 10. I've got recovery situated around a 5. We have a fix for that in the armor mods, and strength sitting at T4. Again, I have a fix for that in the armor mods as well as the build. Both of those are going to be a non-issue. You're essentially, once this is all said and done, you're going to have 5 stats running at T9 and above pretty consistently. For fragments, Facet of Awakening, rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness damage or super final blows, generate an elemental pickup of the matching damage type. So, matching damage type. Now, typically speaking, if you're throwing your super out there and it's killing, some ads, but mainly it's for the boss, obviously, or maybe you just need to use it for that semi-difficult champion. You're going to get a Void Breach. So it's going to give you more ability energy back. It grants class ability energy. And more class ability energy means more threadlings. It also means more mortars, solar mortars that are going to be lobbed at your enemies as well. Now, if you do rapidly defeat with a strand weapon or stasis weapon, you're going to get darkness elemental pickup of the matching damage type as well. So just an all-around kind of a balanced first fragment. Next, we're going to go with the Facet of Purpose. Picking up an Orb of Power grants either Amplified Restoration, Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or Overshield. Overshield reduces the damage taken from combatants. Now this one I kind of go back and forth on. I don't necessarily need the Overshield unless I'm running very high-end content. Everyday activity, if you're having trouble staying alive, that's going to be an armor problem more than a fragment problem. But just for the sake of synergy and the overall strength of the build, I think this is the way to go, because if you do find yourself stranded on Shutter Island there and you are your own army, you're going to want that Overshield for that extra little uptick in your ability to stay alive. But you can absolutely swap this out. One of the popular ones that I swap it out with, while you have an elemental buff, your class ability regenerates more quickly. If you're going to swap it out with anything, this Facet of Hope is 100% the way to go. It also gives you 10 back on your recovery and bumps you up to a T6. So you can play with those two. You can figure out which one works for you best. But for the overall synergy of the build, this is probably the way to go. You get that Overshield, and if you are just mowing through enemies, the Overshield is going to end up helping you. Next, we're going to go with the Facet of Justice. When transcendent, your ability final blows explode. It also gives you plus 10 intellect. You're going to get a lot of transcendent energy with this. So when you are waiting for that grenade to recharge, I'd like to see a little bit of an extra, call it a cherry on top. The explosion is awesome. It deals transcendent damage to the surrounding opponents that you may or may not be seeing. And also, they're all going to get sucked into that grenade. So if they explode, it's just going to create more damage opportunity for anybody around them. It's just a good cherry on top while you are transcendent. But again, if you don't typically like the transcendent experience, so to speak, again, you can swap this out with another one. Another one I like to swap out with, Facet of Hope. If you want the Overshield, but you also want the class ability to regenerate more quickly, you absolutely can substitute that for the Facet of Hope as well. So two spots the Facet of Hope I think could play strong in, but for overall synergy, if you're cycling through your abilities, I think the Transcendent Explosion is going to be the way to go, and you get a nice little bump to your intellect. Next, we have Facet of Sacrifice. When you have an Arc, Solar, or Void buff, ability final blows grant bonus Darkness Transcendence energy. This is where it comes into play, where it's not really going to matter what you're doing. You're going to be getting that Darkness Transcendent energy, which means you're not going to have to spam a Strand or Stasis weapon to get that darkness energy built up. You're going to be getting Arc, Solar, Void, essentially light buffs throughout this build with just regular gameplay. Light buffs include Amplified, Cure, Radiant, Restoration, Devour, Invisibility, and Overshield. So again, that's also why I have the Overshield equipped, because that buff is going to give me Darkness Transcendent energy, and since I'm going to be spamming a Void weapon, it just works very well together. Next, I've got the Facet of Balance. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee energy. Rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. Now, Arcane Needle, it's one of my favorite melees, if not the top melee. And because I'm going to be spamming a light weapon for damage, or for mostly ad clear, obviously, and I've got the Hellion, I want that melee to be at max capacity, because if I want to whip 3 of them out, add a champion to take his damage down real quick, that's going to be the melee you're going to want. You're not going to want any other melee. So again, just good synergy build. And when you whip that melee out, it's a strand melee. So you're going to be generating that darkness energy anyways. So you see, it is called the Facet of Balance, but with what we've got so far, it's going to further boost your ability to regenerate all your abilities in a much quicker fashion. Finally, I've got the Facet of Honor. Now this one I kind of went back and forth on. I don't really care about the plus 10 to the strength, but collecting an elemental pickup or destroying a tangle grants transcendence energy of the same type. Now this is another one I could substitute with the Facet of Hope. However, I think this one plays a more pivotal role, because if you are running the Call, or if you have Threadlings, or if you have Arcane Needle, or if you've got Weaver's Call on tap, you're going to get those tangles generating at a regular rate. And you're already going to be getting elemental pickups with your light weapons. So this is one of those things where you're going to kind of double dip to both light and darkness to get that transcendent energy back to where it needs to be, so you can use it pretty much on call. As far as weapons, there's certainly some options here, but the main weapon is going to be in the energy slot, Graviton Lance. If you've never used this weapon, I feel sorry for you. You need to use this weapon. This is the best ad clear weapon. It also is a Vorpal weapon. The splash damage on this is simply amazing. I've got, for kinetic weapon, I've got the Call, which is the strand sidearm with the special ammo. I got beacon rounds and Vorpal weapon because I'm mainly going to be using this to stun champs. And the dealer's choice perk on this gives you a nice little buff to your super energy regen, which you're going to see you're not really going to need any help with that, but any little help you get, you'll certainly take. For my heavy, I went with the Faithkeeper rocket launcher. Now, I know this is not the most popular choice, but this is a precision frame rocket launcher that boasts auto-loading holster and bipod, as well as the Radiolaria transposer perk. Now, if you don't use precision frame rocket launchers, one of the main thing in here is that it's going to fire a small auto-tracking missile, which inherently means you're going to have less of a blast radius, but more of a damage tick. It is a little bit slower readying. It is a little bit slower reloading. That's what the auto load is on there for. And the bipod is going to give you +1 to that magazine. So you're going to be able to, for a rocket launcher, rapid fire 2 shots off at once. And again, you're going to be rotating this through on a DPS phase for a boss with your Nova Bomb. So your Nova Bomb is going to be your primary source of DPS to get it to start, and then this is going to come in and round it out very nicely. And then you've got the auto loading, so you can switch over to the Call with your Beacon and Vorpal rounds and continue to dump significant DPS into just about every boss you're going to face. Now, in Master content, you may or may not want this one. I think I would still want this one more often than not, but there's other options as well, and I'm going to go through those real quick. If you don't want, for some reason, to use Graviton Lance, you can absolutely, and you still want to use the exotic, Le Monarch is a great option because of the poison that spreads to targets. Now, you can synergize this with a weakening debuff fragment, but I don't really think that's necessary, because if you're going to use a bow, you're obviously going for something specific, maybe slow tick damage as opposed to mass population kill. I don't know. Le Monarch is an excellent option. You're going to get that good ammo economy as well. You can also, if you have Age-Old Bond, use Dragonfly destabilizing rounds as a way to generate more void damage. Void damage is going to be huge for our first armor mod, or our first armor piece. Also, it's a very good ad clear weapon. Not the fastest firing, but it is very, very accurate. If you want to run faster, you can also use Funnel Web or the Recluse. Both of these are going to synergize with the Void aspects, as well as buff the regen of your super and your abilities. So if by chance you are using a non-exotic in your energy slot, you can come down here, throw on Microcosm, get that amazing DPS. If you haven't gotten Microcosm yet, I 100% recommend it. There's a couple of builds that I run where this thing just absolutely decimates. Matter of fact, I was just running Riven, and the two people that were at the highest, myself and someone else, for DPS, we did end up wiping, were using Microcosm, and we were head and shoulders above everybody else. Microcosm, after you deplete your super, comes in and absolutely just levels whatever boss you're firing at based on the paracausal imbuement. You can also throw on Levy's Breath. Now, I know that's not getting a lot of love this season because there's not really much for bows, but because of the strength of this bow, it is an option that you can run. If you've used this on any stationary boss DPS phase, you know how good it is. You know how competitive it is. Up there with Thunderlord, up there with Galley, up there with all the big names. This stands alone in its own atmosphere as well. But if you are using Graviton and you don't like the rocket launcher, you want something different, you can never go wrong with Retrofit Escapade, 4 times the charm and target lock, or one of my favorites, Commemoration with Reconstruction and Rampage. Now this is more of a kind of a ad clear-ish type weapon. The reason I like this is Reconstruction can put 144 rounds of ammo in there, and at 450 you're pretty much going to be hitting the target wherever you want to hit it from a moderate distance, maybe even a little bit further distance if you need to seek cover. Retrofit is more of a in-your-face, 900 rounds. You're not shooting that from halfway across the map and expecting to hit crits every time. Which again is why I like Faithkeeper, because you can do both. As far as armor goes, numero uno that you need for the helmet, Nezarec Sin. If you have never tried this, I recommend trying to farm it a little bit, get the roll that you want. Void damage kills, increase ability energy recharge rate. Now the ability recharge rate is 300%. Your super recharge rate is 200%. But you have to get void damage kills fairly regularly to keep that buff going. It's not like you just get one, you kill one enemy and the thing starts, counting down from 10. It doesn't work like that. You got to keep going. So it's going to be a cycle, which is why Graviton Lance is perfect for this build. I like to run double harmonic siphon on this as well as an ammo finder. The double harmonic siphon might seem redundant, but I like to run that on a lot of classes because I typically focus my armor to have high intellect so that I don't have to waste 3 of my 10 energy on a font. So Font of Wisdom would be what you would probably normally run in here as opposed to a second harmonic siphon. I don't, because I focused all my armor to have higher intellect. So I get the intellect bump without having to use the Font of Wisdom, which also means I got to be picking up Orbs of Power. So the Orbs of Power that I get are going to go all to my lower stat distribution portions of my armor, recovery and strength. Mobility I don't really care about, you can see there. But recovery, I've got a font for that, and I've got a font for strength, which is going to help us get 5 out of the 6 stats to T9, at least T8 and higher. And then obviously I got recovery. I wanted the +3 to get myself to a T5 recovery. Next, we've got the gauntlets. This is pretty straightforward. I've got the harmonic loader. I like to try to synergize my heavy and my energy to be matching. I realize that that's not always possible depending on what kind of content you're playing. Some raids, you're not going to want that. Certainly some higher end master level stuff, you're not going to want that. But for everyday type stuff, even nightfalls, harmonic loader, get your ammo reloaded, especially on if you're using retrofit. That's an excellent thing as well because retrofit already has high reload speed, so this is only going to amplify it. So if you love retrofit, harmonic loader times 2, it's going to speed it up even faster than it is. To address the lack of strength in my build, I've got the Font of Vigor. Bonus 2 strength while I have any armor charge. And obviously I'm going to be generating a lot of orbs of power. So that's probably never going to be an issue when I'm in the middle of combat, which is when I'm going to want it. When I'm going from place to place, it doesn't really matter. But when I'm in combat, that's when it's going to matter. As far as the chest armor goes, now there can be some debate on this. I'm going to show you what I've got and show you what other people probably will recommend. That, again, it's going to depend on what you're doing. I've got strand reserves and double harmonic reserves. I got the double harmonic so I can have more rocket ammo, and I've got the strand reserve so I can have more bonus ammo in reserve for the call in case I do find myself spamming that a lot. Maybe there's a couple of champs right next to each other, or a boss and a champ, and I want to get the champ, so I'm just firing it and then I finish the magazine on the boss. I don't know. However it goes, I want to have a little bit of extra ammo. Typically speaking, most build videos are going to tell you to put one of each. One arc resistance, one solar resistance, one void resistance are the main ones. That can help you. But again, if you're running master content, that's probably where you're going to want it. If you're running overthrows, if you're running strikes, if you're running regular nightfalls, maybe even some GM nightfalls, you're not going to equip one of all of those. You're just going to equip whatever the surge is, whatever the danger is, especially with Legend Lost sectors, for example, one of the quickest farms to get prisms and cores. You're gonna dress for what is coming your way. So if you're going to be seeing a lot of arc, you're going to put arc on. If you're going to see solar, you're going to put solar on, so on and so forth. But this works for me because I focused on the 4 energy mods, intellect and resilience. I don't have to worry about wasting an extra energy on a 4 energy mod. I can go with the discipline because I purposely left that a little bit low, and it allows me to equip these 3 and fill up 10 energy. For the leg armor, pretty straightforward. I have this on most of my builds. Again, with the extra discipline. Absolution times 2. Now, I understand that you can put whatever you want on here. If you want your class ability faster, great. If you want your great grenade back faster, great. If you want to replenish a little bit of health each time you pick up an orb of power, great. These are all viable options, as well as orbs restoration, a small amount of energy to the ability with your least energy. With the amount of uptick that you're going to have because of the void kills, I don't really care what ability generates first because I'm going to use it. So whether that's my class ability, whether that's my melee, whether that's grenade, whatever comes back first, that's going to be the cycle I start. Why? Because it's not going to matter. I'm going to be leveling most battlefields through using my abilities as well as my main ad clear weapon, along with my sidearm to stun champions. So this isn't really going to matter. And if you're working with, let's say that you're in a boss room where there's very quick DPS phases, you're not going to have time to recover every single ability you can. Maybe you waste them all on the boss, which you might have to. A lot of people do. I know I do. I want the boss to die as fast as possible. So when I've got short windows in between where the damage phases go, I want to be able to regenerate whatever ability energy I can as fast as possible. And because I'm going to be throwing them at different times, I'm going to be getting them back at different times. So I've got the absolution times 2. You can do what works for you. Some people would say, oh, well, why don't you put the void weapon damage booster on? Well, I could do that, but I'm not really lacking in damage, and I've got a Nova Bomb if I really need it. Others will say stacks on stacks. That's a 4 energy one. I don't really need an additional armor charge. Some people might say that it's beneficial, but I'm only buffing 2 stats, recovery and strength from it. The other 2 stats I've got 24/7 wherever I go. So it seems like kind of a waste. If I was running more fonts, if I was running a font on basically every piece of armor, absolutely stacks on stacks is for you. But I don't need a font to boost my resilience 4 more to get to 10. I'm already at 9. That's good enough. Same thing with discipline and intellect. It's pointless to have that. And then harmonic scavenger. Again, I like to have the heavy and the energy weapon match when possible. So anything that, I mean, the scavenger is pretty straightforward. It's only 1 energy. If you've got that selected on your artifact perk, it's a no-brainer. If you can get by with using a void heavy, it's absolutely beneficial. But if for some reason, you are running microcosm or you want something else and it's not void, you swap one of these out to fit your build. Maybe you go down to this one, Orbs of Restoration. You get an extra option. You can put kinetic. And actually, it doesn't really matter because, again, I forgot, it's going to be 1 energy regardless. So, yeah, it's just good if you have 3, 3, and 3. You get that. You can get 1 extra or 1 scavenger mod in there. Get yourself a little extra ammo per brick. Finally, for the bond, Font Restoration addresses the recovery problem that you may or may not think that I have. As soon as I pick up that first Orb of Power, my recovery instantly boosts. I'll pretty much have 2 armor charges during any heavy add fight, which is going to put me at a T10 basically for recovery, as well as a T10 essentially for strength. So because you're going to be generating so many Orbs of Power with Graviton, as well as if you do end up throwing your rocket launcher or using your melee ability or whatever, if it generates an Orb of Power, you're going to pick it up and it's going to give you an armor charge. Now the key here that I put on everything, pretty much non-negotiable, time dilation. Your decaying armor charge has a longer duration. This is important for pretty much every build. Whether you do nothing but run strikes, you do nothing but run gambit, or you're a very sweaty player who is constantly doing master content and nothing else, a decaying armor charge that has a longer duration is going to be your best friend, because anything you pick up is going to last much longer. So if you only have 1 armor charge and you're holding on to it and you're waiting for that last little bit of energy to come back so you can use an ability, this is going to help you get there. And then as far as the other item, I've got the Bomber reduced grenade cooldown when using your class abilities. So because I'm using the Hellion, it's going to reduce my grenade. So the Hellion, light energy, the grenade, because I'm running Strand, dark energy. So again, that goes well with whatever I'm looking for. But if you like to spam melee, reduce your melee. And then you've also got distribution, which you would have to make some room for. Reduce all ability cooldowns when using your class ability. I don't really think that's necessary, but some people do like to run it. And then other people will say, hey, what about Reaper? Shortly after using your class ability, your next weapon findable spawns an Orb of Power. Again, I'm going to have enough Orbs of Power to kind of be where I need to be. You're not going to make the perfect class. So some of this is going to be based on your playstyle, which is why I gave you so many options for weapons. Now, one of the options that I didn't give you for weapons was swords. Now, if you have Ergo Sum here, or if you have another sword here, like Lament, for example, and you've got your artifact to boost those, you can absolutely tie into this. I just think because it's void and because you've got the exotic armor item, you're going to want as much void damage going out as possible. As far as the artifact perk, I've got kind of a mixed bag of everything that I have here. There is going to be one thing on here that's going to be a little bit surprising to some, but I'll explain that. First, obviously, anti-barrier pulse rifle and unstoppable sidearm. Pretty much non-negotiable if you're literally running those 2 in your build. Next, I've got Logic Reductor. Weapons with the Transposer Origin perk deal increased damage to Vex, extends the duration of the pools created by the Transposer. Not everywhere you go is going to have Vex, but if you are running the Breach, if you're running the Helm activities, you're going to see a lot of Vex. This is just good to keep on there. And honestly, with this build, you're going to have more options than you kind of know what to do with as far as places you can put a selection on. Next, I've got Overcharge Armory. Weapons with Dealer's Choice. Always overcharge for you when you get that modifier. Again, Dealer's Choice gets you your super back quickly. So I've got the call on here. It's good to have this on here. Same thing, Winning Hand. Weapons with Dealer's Choice Origin trait. Rapidly defeating them causes targets to explode, dealing solar damage. Solar damage, again, generates darkness transcendence. Scavenger mods. This discounts all the scavenger mods, which is what I forgot when I was explaining the armor. But any of those mods are going to be 1 energy. So if you aren't using scavenger mods and you do find yourself running out of ammo, this is kind of a must-have. Threaded Blast. Destroy a tangle with the strand weapon, creates a large and more damaging explosion. Pretty straightforward. You're going to be using the call. You've got the tangles. You've got the arcane needle. You're going to have tangles occasionally. Shoot them with the call. Get that Dealer's Choice going, and then get the extra Threaded Blast as well. Elemental Siphon. Rapid final blows with a kinetic weapon or a weapon matching your equipped super create an elemental pickup that matches your equipped super. So again, you're going to be creating Void Breaches here. Void Breaches grant you class ability energy. It's just one more way you're able to get one of your abilities back super quick. Radiant Orbs. Yes, I have bypassed Void Hegemony and gone with Radiant Orbs. And here's why. While you have a Solar or Prismatic subclass equipped, picking up an Orb of Power makes you Radiant. What does Radiant do for you? It increases your damage output. And I will show you. Radiant. Your weapons are enhanced by the power of the Traveler and deal increased damage to combatants. When you are Radiant, your weapons pierce the shields of a barrier champion and stun them. Now that perk, that buff, because of the addition of Prismatic as a whole, used to be with only solar weapons. That is not the case anymore. If you are Radiant and you are firing anything, it pierces the barrier champions. Now again, is that the most necessary option? No, but it does give you a little bit of a boost to your weapon damage. And that's why I want it, because I think that's more important than getting a Void Overshield, which I'm already going to get from the aspects, or excuse me, the fragments that I have set up in the class build to begin with. I also don't really care about the Void Swords dealing increased damage to weakening targets. There's other builds I'm going to release in the future where this is going to matter to me, but because I'm using Graviton, it's got the Vorpal option. Because I'm using the call, I'm not super worried about this, and I'm also not using a Void Grenade, so again, it's going to be kind of a waste of a perk here. Shield Crush. While you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or a Void Overshield, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage. So again, that's why I've got the Overshield option in my build. It pairs very nicely with the Hunter's Journal, and it's going to make your overall gameplay that much better. Transference. Gain increased grenade and melee damage while transcendent. So again, that explosion that I said that kind of was optional if you wanted, you know, this is transference where you get increased grenade and melee damage while you're transcendent. Weapon final blows while transcendent refund light and dark energy after transcendence ends. which again is going to boost your ability to use transcendence as much as you possibly can. So those two things kind of go hand in hand with the aspects that I have, as well as the fragments that I have with those aspects. And ultimately what this is going to do is round out your build so that you can deal damage with virtually any type of damage buff you can possibly think of, with the exception of being maybe stasis or amplified. But you're going to have everything else. As far as the ghost shell, this is what I run. It has really nothing to do with the build itself, but if you aren't maxed yet, go ahead and throw on that 6 energy blinding light, get your XP up, get that red, that new pulse rifle, that exotic pulse rifle, get that catalyst, finish your act here, and then you can drop this down to 1. Wombo detector, that's pretty straightforward. And then glimmer. If you're focusing armor, if you're leveling up weapons, if you're doing all these things, you're going to need glimmer. You wouldn't think that 500,000 can go that quickly, but if you're trying to do 2 or 3 things, it can add up. And then any ritual activity that you're doing, put on the core harvest. You seem to get better results from the core harvest from ritual activities than if you were to go to the prism harvest. And prisms, you can buy them at Rahul, so you can have everything you need. So that's the class. Now, obviously, you can pick what you think would be good for you. Maybe this is a great start for you. Maybe you end up trying it and you really like it. That's the idea. The idea is to try to just enhance your gameplay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go real quick to the Altars of Sorrow. And I'm just going to do a quick little build test here. And you're going to see just how quickly everything kind of comes back around for you. And you're going to see, you're going to end up running out of space on the left-hand side of the screen for buffs. And I always like when that happens, because then you just kind of have to assume that it's there. But with the addition of Prismatic, all these elements can kind of come together. And if you know how to blend them, it makes Void extremely fun to play. It also makes it extremely powerful. Endgame, Legend, Master Lost Sectors, Nightfalls, kind of doesn't really matter. If you're looking for a powerful class that just absolutely rakes, I don't know if you're going to find one that is better than this. So obviously you saw me load in. And here we go. I'm already creating orbs of power. I've already got, 25% of my energy back. Whoops. But basically what I want to do is I want to get into kind of a loop here. And obviously when you come to the altars, you're kind of just falling into whatever it is. But void damage is going to give you, and you just see the ammo bricks, they're just falling. But void reaches everywhere, so I'm constantly getting my class ability energy, so I'm going to be able to drop the Hellion. I'm going to be able to get that bonus transcendence energy. I can throw down melee whenever I want. I'm not really hurting for anything. And as you can see, I've been in here for like a minute, and I've already got my super. So again, that's by design. I like to throw my super as often as possible because it seems more often than not, I end up getting paired sometimes with people that have more centric on weapon damage and maybe more of a fun super. I like my super to be exactly what it's advertised to be, the most powerful thing in my arsenal. And if this is what I got to do to get that to repopulate quickly, then I'm going to do it. So now that I've exercised, I just whiffed on that transcendence grenade. But now that I've gone through pretty much all of my abilities, now I've got transcendence to kind of round me out. And again, this is a horrible example of what, how long transcendence can last, because I obviously got it right at the tail end of that wave. But transcendence is extended by essentially anything that you do. So if you're trying to throw a bunch of those grenades down. This is going to help you do that. If you're trying to make things explode, if you're trying to create that vortex, this is going to help you. And obviously, kind of by myself on that one. But you get the idea. Anything that you do is going to help you do anything that you want to do. And the key here is, and again, it's going to depend on your playstyle. Me, you can kind of see, I like to run and gun. See here, I've already got my super again. But the reason I like Altar of Sorrows, which by the way, if you're not build testing on Altar of Sorrows, it is the #1 place to go. Because it functions kind of like a strike. A strike is not all done in one room. Altar of Sorrows is not all done at one altar. There's going to be times you're running from place to place, and you're going to have to reset, you're going to have to reload, make sure you've got, you know, your weapons the way that you want them, and then obviously that you're prepared for what's coming next. That's why I like altars. So if you haven't tried it, next time that you're experimenting with builds, come to altars, and it will give you as close to a regular strike of like experience and flow and whatever else you want to call it as anything out there. I like it better than Overthrow. Overthrow seems kind of spaced out at times, but again, you're going to get those times where it's just going to seem like endless amounts of enemies. So here we go, just kind of like a strike. Now we're at a dead spot, and you can see I'm already halfway back on my super, and the enemies are not exactly flowing, so to speak now, but any little bit that I get is helping me. And again, if you're down on enemies, you're not getting those orbs of power created, you can use the dealer's choice weapon. Kind of spam that, you get your darkness energy back, and any kill that you get with it is going to help regenerate your super even faster. Which again, you're already at T10, so anything you do is only going to amplify that, you know, that return. It's not going to increase the speed it regenerates, it's just going to give you a small tick towards the completion of regenerating. And there you got it. I've already got it. So that's the build. If anything in this video is helping you, or you resonate with anything in this video, hopefully you try it out. Let me know what works for you. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you liked. Let me know what you didn't like, and have some fun with it. Because honestly, I used to never ever pick up Void, and once I kind of discovered how to synergize with certain aspects and things like that, and then with the addition of Prismatic, it's been truly one of the most fun and most used builds that I have today. Now that could change, you know, next year I'm sure something else will be the bee's knees, but this by far, you get everything that you want and nothing that you don't, essentially. And Prismatic really helps round that out so that you're never lacking in anything. So thanks all for the feedback. My next videos are going to be the hunter builds that I have. Check out my other builds. Let me know if those work for you too. And obviously I want to try to help as many people as possible enhance their game. So if you know someone that needs help, know someone that loves Void, know someone that likes Warlock but doesn't know how to turn their Warlock into a one-man wrecking ball, make sure you share the video with them. Help everyone enjoy the game a little bit better. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.